everyone, and welcome to one of our knowledge transfer sessions. Today I'm joined by our intern.
Hello everyone, I'm Luke.
And what I thought today would be fun is talk about one of the more complex financial topics we work on as part of our training session for you. What are we talking about today?
Valuations today.
Valuations. You ever heard that term before?
Not before today.
Yeah, it's actually funny, embarrassingly so, I would say. I was deeply in the financial services industry before I ever even understood what this term meant. I was just focusing on good financial planning. I was like, what is this stuff going on here?
Yeah.
But it's actually a very important topic to understand because I think it's one of those areas of education, especially for people who do their own investing, that they should understand one of these core fundamentals of the financial services industry. So before we get going, we always give our basic compliance statement, right? Today's presentation history is general in nature. We're going to try and give you as good information as we can, but the way the financial services industry works is lots of people can have different viewpoints about topics, and so just treat today's information as general in nature. Quick little note about myself. I have more than 18 years experience in the financial services industry. I've worked everywhere from a bank to an insurance company, running my own practice 10 plus years, and so I'm trying to come at this from a broad-based viewpoint, basically. So why should you care about valuations? We're going to go over that, and then we're going to go why the market is being driven by valuations right now. We're going to talk about what makes this hard, and then we're going to talk about how we handle this in practice and how I would suggest you handle this in the future. All right?
Let's do it.
So why should you care about valuations? You ever had an idea for that?
It impacts the stock market a lot.
That's fair. Here's why I would suggest you might want to consider caring about valuations. Someday, if you get licensed and do what I do, you're going to be paid based upon giving financial advice, which means you need to have an opinion that I hopefully is valuable enough that someone wants to pay you for, basically, right? And so if this is a major financial topic, you should understand enough about it because your job is to give opinions about these topics. And, when we talk about this term, I mentioned this before to you, this term's going to come at you a lot. Former Fed Chairman Jerome Powell talked about it last year pretty aggressively. Do you know who Nicolai Tangen is?
No.
All right. He runs probably one of the biggest sovereign wealth funds in the entire world. That's Norway's sovereign wealth fund. And so he says that where liquidity and valuations is highest is typically where money's going to go, basically. So this idea of valuations, the people who I would argue are smarter than me, they really care about it.
Right.
And I mean a lot. I grabbed a whole bunch of articles about this idea of valuations. Now, when you look at these articles, is there anything that kind of stands out to you?
There's a lot of them.
I mean, that's fair. That's a good starting point. A lot of times when we talk about valuations, you're going to see articles talking about the value of the stock market. And there's always going to be this concept. Is something overvalued or undervalued? Right? So I asked you, how much does a bag of chips cost the store right now, would you say?
$5, $4.
$4 or $5, okay. Is that a fair price?
I'd pay $3.
No, that's fair. But if it's $4, you got to pay the $4, right? And so, that's what we're talking about today is this concept of is something overvalued or undervalued? If you could buy a bag of chips for $1, would you buy that?
Sure.
Probably buy a lot of bags of chips, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's relate to the actual stock market. And I love using Amazon because I would argue Amazon kind of broke the concept of valuations first more than any other company. And so look at Amazon. And this is one of these ones where we get to start at the past with full knowledge of how this ends up today, right? So in the past, Amazon, reality, close of day, someone was willing to sell or buy at this price was $220 a share. Right? That's just reality. So just like that bag of chips, right? But Morningstar, which is a major industry leader of data for the financial services industry, they said Amazon should be $245 a share. So who's right? Reality or someone's opinion? And then we push forward about 6 months roughly, and we see that Amazon's now $211 a share. It's gone down. Reality's gone down. At the exact same time, Morningstar says it should be $260 a share. Is Morningstar wrong? Maybe. And then we go to today. is $274 a share. It's less than a year. It's popped pretty good. I mean,
Right.
you'd like to make 20+%, wouldn't you?
100%.
Right? And so, and we say Morningstar thinks it should be worth $300 a share, right? So it's still saying it's undervalued. So do you see how value is affecting this right here? Someone's opinion versus reality. Would you buy Amazon?
Yeah.
Okay. But at which, it clearly buy Amazon based upon this chart, right? Because
Right.
you get to look at the past.
Yeah.
But you had to go back to 825 and buy Amazon, and then you had to suffer March of that year when it went down,
Yeah.
right? And generally remember this basic concept, right? The stock market over time, so we're saying the U.S. stock market for now, generally goes up over time. Pretty good, actually, right? Has there ever been a time in your life the stock market's gone down? Do you remember any times? Maybe 2008. How old are you in 2008?
3.
3. So you didn't have the paper out at that time,
No.
following the stock market, right? So there have been times it's gone down, but generally over the long term, it's gone up, right? And it's kind of one of those, not foolproof because you can't guarantee it, but close to that methods. The other interesting thing when we talk about valuations is it might be driving the market, right? So, when we talk about why a stock should be valuable, well, maybe the company has really good profits. Maybe they have this cool, innovative idea that you think is going to lead to future profits, basically, right? Well, one of the ways that stocks can go up in value is we just think it's worth more. The other day I asked you to bring out a $20 bill and you didn't trust me, so you only brought a $5 bill. You remember that? But you held up in your hand a piece of paper. What's that paper worth? It's worth $5. It really what it's worth is what our opinion is and what we're able to buy with it, right? So valuations is really it's really fundamental to the way we treat money. Actually, opinions, and what a lot of research is showing is that outside of companies' profits or things that would traditionally drive it to go up in value, just the fact we think it's going to be worth more in the future is causing it to be worth more in the future. Right? I call it the Tesla effect. It's not because Tesla's not worth a lot of money. It's a very powerful car company. But it really jumped up in price there for a period of time because people just kept thinking it'd be worth more, it'd be worth more, it'd be worth more, even though its profits couldn't keep up to that. So we talked about valuation. Let's really define the difference between price and valuation. So what's the difference between price and valuation? At this point, we've talked a little about the Amazon thing. What would you say the difference between price and valuation is?
Price is what it's reality, is what it's actually worth, and the
Sure.
evaluation is opinion based.
Good, that's exactly right.
It's going to be
And someday if you do my job, you're going to get paid upon opinions.
opinions. Okay.
Right? You need to have a good basis of reality, but you have to give a good, strong opinion, right? And so, we have to look at this, and we know back in 825, Morningstar said it was worth $260 a share. It was at $227 a share, and today it's worth $274. So, if you bought it back in the day, you're pretty happy if you believed in Morningstar's valuation. But price was reality, and anyone who needed to live on that money to buy and sell, say in March of that year, because a life event occurred, maybe they were reallocating money, they had to pay that one price where it went down, right? So price is reality, but the valuation is really important. And so evaluation, it's really a process, right? So it can be almost any way we want to determine a price, right? That bag of chips example, right? You said, you pay $3 for a bag of chips. How'd you arrive at that number?
I guess just
It was
over
less
time.
than it was less than the 4.
Right.
It's how much you have in your
It's my
pocket.
opinion.
Yeah, it's your opinion, right? In theory, like the way Morningstar is doing it, or really the big financial firms, it's going to be a quantitative process. It's going to be a lot of math around it. You're looking at companies' profits. You're looking at their ability to disrupt in the future, their revenue sources. And actually what's happened over time is as new companies have come out and broken the models, we've been changing the models around valuation. Because remember, this is a combination of math and opinion, and one of the ways to have a better opinion is to be able to put math around it. Now, we often can and will value things differently. Historically, anyone who's looked at the stock market might look at something like the price to earnings ratio or PE ratio. And most people, when we took this old school way of doing things, we would say that a company that has a PE ratio of 20-25 would be in the average range, meaning it's okay, it's appropriately valued. And when you look at, this is last year, when you look at the overall stock market, and when I say stock market, the S&P 500, it was kind of right in the middle there. And it's gone up a lot since then. So even though the PE ratio was saying, it's basically going to peter out, it jumped.
Yeah.
Amazon jumped like crazy, and it's clearly breaking the PE ratio. ExxonMobil, it's an oil company. Now right now it's doing really well because of, why is oil doing really well? Why are oil companies doing well right now? What's happening out there? The wars. There we go. The Iran war, right? See, I'm putting you on the spot. You asked for layup questions, and I'm getting you good, right? But when we look at this right here, we would, traditional valuations, you would have bought ExxonMobil, and you would have not bought Amazon. And Amazon did really well, and the overall market's done really well. And when you look at these PE ratios and historical returns, Exxon's a little different because this is as of last year. We would see that Amazon, with the worst PE ratio, has the best returns. So this idea of disruptors, right? A lot of times, someone who's going to come in who doesn't have proof now, but they're like the young and upcoming stud. Like, what do you do for at college? Do you play baseball?
Play baseball at college.
Right. So you know how when someone's a really hot prospect, they look really good. Are they necessarily going to make it to the next level?
No.
But they might, right? So you would probably want to put more value in that young hot prospect than someone who's not a young hot prospect, because they're not the other one. They're definitely not going to make it, right? And so disruption really matters, but that's really hard to value because you don't know if they're going to make it. Now, are valuations just BS, right? You said it was just an opinion, right? But I'm saying it's driving a majority. Opinions are driving the majority of market returns now, or a large portion of it. Yeah. So is this BS? Well, this is, I would say, where this is the big problem when we talk about valuations. Just because someone has a model doesn't mean they're going to beat the overall market, right? If I could go out there and, based upon either valuations or PE ratios, choose the perfect stock 7 times out of 10, I wouldn't be doing these videos right now. Where would I be?
On the beach.
On the beach. You get it, right? So the idea we're going to stock pick is going to be really hard. Just because someone's saying the market is overvalued, that doesn't mean they're right. In fact, for the past roughly 15 years, they've been wrong because the market continues to go up no matter how often someone says the market's overvalued. And you can also fall into a trap when we talk about, we call it the value trap. And I'll use Ford as an example. Ford has decent PE ratios. They have good profits and things of that nature. Or even McDonald's. I love talking about McDonald's. So McDonald's is a value trap. They can grow. They can make good money. Can McDonald's explode? Can they become bigger than they are now?
No, not really.
Right. Can they create a new technology that's somehow going to make the next best hamburger?
Maybe,
yeah. It's dreaming, right?
But no.
No, probably not, right? But Amazon might be able to.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the value trap. Is there can be sometimes reasons that companies can have really good numbers, but at the end of the day, they're just not going to succeed or do well. And then, the other thing we talk about when we talk about values, we relate it to our job. Valuations are pretty critical to understanding why something can grow, even though the math suggests they might not be able to. I challenge you, go figure out how Morningstar is doing those valuations for Amazon, because they'll train you some of the new ways we do these things. But I always like to look at endowment funds for universities, and Harvard has one of the biggest endowment funds, and they put the reports out there, so I like to look at this. And with all their knowledge and their skill, and I would say they're probably smarter than you, both of us. But think about it. All of Harvard's skill, what do they target?
8%.
8%. Now, if you were in the market, say, for 5 years, what would you make roughly? The standard S&P 500. Do you have a guess?
16.
That's about right. Exactly. So Harvard knows this math, and they're only targeting 8%.
Right.
Why? Why are they only targeting 8% when you can just be a boglehead and get 16? Do you have an idea? Well, because they can't take the risk of a loss, right? They're funding around 1/3 to 40% of the university's operations, and the thing about valuations is they can change, right? And so the problem for Harvard, or really for retirees or people who don't have a paycheck, right, where they're relying on their investments, they need to start getting consistency And the biggest problem with valuations is lack of consistency. So how do we handle this in our practice? Well, I think we have to be honest about this valuation problem. Valuations are just estimates. I will always give someone my opinion on, if they had, most recently was SpaceX. I'll tell you what I think about SpaceX, but this could be right or wrong. Remember, if I could just pick all these all the time, I wouldn't be here. And so what we do for our clients is we really suggest systematic approaches and less stock picking. And when we talk about systematic approaches, that's this combination of diversifying based upon your goals and life cycle. And just by basic diversification, what's going to happen is we're going to create a situation where we buy both the winners and the losers, and hopefully we achieve a more consistent result, but not as high-end effectively. What we really like to do, I talked about this just a second ago, but we like to figure out your life cycle, right? So your age, right? Should you invest conservative or aggressive typically?
Aggressive.
Right. Because you have hopefully a long time and lots of years of work ahead of you, as I like to kid with you. Your fun summers are slowly but surely going away. But that's okay because you want to grow your money over your lifetime. And so you should focus on the evaluation, more focused game as opposed to maybe diversifying a little less, right? Whereas retirees, I like to be more like endowments. I like to achieve a lower return, but I want it to have all sorts of different strategies, including value strategies, not valuations, but strategies that may just be good but not great, because I want to protect against market downturns in the future for those people, basically. So lots of different ways to do this, lots of different opinions you can have on this, right? We talked about a lot of opinions here. But generally for most retirees, we suggest more moderate returns. Beyond that, anything you would want to add to this? No? All right, he's done. So we're here to help. I have more than 18 years of experience in the financial services industry. My office is in Bellevue, Washington State, next to Overlake Hospital. So you're always welcome to shoot me an email or drop me a line, and we'd be happy to have a conversation with you. Thank you.